Another week, another podcast. We're back on the Monster Truck Outlaws List podcast, episode number 37. I'm Vincent. Phil's over here somewhere. Phil, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, just horsing around.
Horsing around.
That's the word we're going with tonight. That's all I can say.
No puns, no nothing.
And a big smile on my face. Only thing I can do.
Perfect. Well, we're back. We're not slowing down as always. Now, who do we have on tonight?
I don't know, who do we have on tonight? Well, we are the Monster Truck Outlaws of the West podcast, so it'd be very fitting to have some actual outlaws on. And one of our guests tonight, our guest tonight was one of the many drivers of Iron Outlaw, but also spent a lot of time as driver of Monster Mud on the Triple Threat Series West. He's traveled coast to coast with 2 Extreme Racing, and most importantly, he's a longtime Monster Truck fan that worked hard and did everything the right way. We're going to hear his story tonight. We're going to answer your questions live because our guest tonight is
Tanner, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
Doing great. Phil, how are you doing?
I already asked that. Tanner, always good to see you, my friend. We spent a lot of time on the road together, so great to have you here on the podcast.
Absolutely, Phil. I appreciate you guys having me, Vincent and Phil.
Great having you on tonight. We're going to jump into our first question. Now, Tanner, how did you get your start in monster trucks or the motorsports industry?
So I used to live in Minnesota, and I'd always go to the Hubert Haight Humphrey Metrodome and always see some awesome shows. I have to say some of them commercials really get you pumped up to go to them shows. The announcer of that used to do the commercials as a kid. I mean, you would just get so psyched up. We'd wait outside the gate, go to the pit party. I was such a diehard fan, and went to the shows, really wanted to be a part of it. And actually, one time when I was at the Hubert Haight Humphrey Metrodome after the show, we actually walked down and got on the track after the show, kind of seen behind the scenes. And this was when I was a young kid, so it just made me more psyched. And then I had the opportunity to ride up with Andy Slipko in his semi truck after the show was all loaded. I mean, got me pumped, so I'd wanted to be a part of it. So I started when I was old enough, got out of high school, started helping out wherever I could travel. When I first got started, we moved down to Florida, and I went to a show in Jacksonville. I was actually when I was down there, I actually worked at did parking and security down there, and one of my friends, Mike, he was out there working with me. And I'm like, I want to be a part of that one day. I want to do that. So that weekend, I actually got the opportunity with me and my mom. We actually became a vendor selling the $15 cotton candies and snow cones, just to get any part of the show, just to get behind the scenes somewhat. And then started meeting people. I just started after the show, hey, does anybody need help? I mean, it's a wild story of how it became. I think it was when I first went to a display, I met Adam Anderson and Woos, who was the crew guy for him. He's seen me at a display in 2014, and then the following year in Jacksonville, he's seen me again, and he's like, "Hey, I seen you last year, dude. Hey, come out to the show a day before the show and meet with one of the Henry Cross, which is the mechanic guy, does all the hiring for Feld, and they offered me about doing that, but they wanted me to stay down there, so it was a hard commitment to move down to Ellington, Florida. So I was like, I guess I'll just kind of try to work around with the independents. When I was in Orlando, actually that night after the show, came down with all the fans and then kind of snuck my way kind of in the back, and Gunslinger was getting tired down. They were about done. And then Michael Hardsock, I was there. He's like, it looks like the team over there might need some help. Jester, Matt Peglarulo. I think they had Ice Cream Man in the trailer, or Exterminator. I just started helping out over there and just doing what I can. And it was funny when Matt, he's like, who is this kid? I'm just like, just trying to help out wherever I can. And after I started tiring down, I'm like, hey, can I get like your phone number or something like that? Can I help you in future shows? And he was kind of hesitant because, he was first starting out in the industry and he didn't really know that many people. But he was like, hit me up on Facebook next time we come to town. And a couple weeks later, it was Tampa Bay. We went down there. I kind of snuck my way into, just helping Shane Hughes and them just wherever I can, And then after the show, started helping with John Sweeney. They were working on Monster My Dalmatian and Hot Wheels, just started helping them. And then Henry seen me working there. They offered me a job to do it, but I was like, I don't want to be a crew guy. I was like, my really goal is to drive. So I ended up kind of going with independence and started working with Matt, and he actually took me up under his wing. I did a couple shows, started out in Pensacola and just kind of went on tour a few years with him, and got an opportunity to work with Cam Mingus. He was a great guy. Funny story, when I first met him, we were in Wichita, Kansas, and he I didn't know he couldn't see, and I was kind of standing there next to him helping him. Just, I didn't know anything when I first started, so I was just sitting there just like, he's like, get out of my way, not knowing who I was or anything like that. I never really talked with him, but a couple years later, he ended up coming over to us and worked with the Jester team. He had previous stint with 2 Extreme Racing. When he worked with 2 Extreme Racing after, one second. So when he came to work with the team for about 2 years, and then he ended up leaving, going back with Jim Cretin, and then Jim needed somebody to drive, and he reached out to me and was wondering if I'd wanted to come and crew for a couple weeks. Started out in San Francisco. Did my first show, and the first show we did, it was me and Shane were back together with Jim, and he breaks a front end right after a pit party, right before the show. So he ended up going out there racing. Ryan Anderson blew it apart, came back, tried fixing it. So, Jim's very well known in the business. So it was kind of a quick wake up to what they're 2 Extreme. I mean, they are hardworking, and working with 2 Extreme, when I did, we went week after week after week, show after show. That's the quickest way to learn. I was kind of, after a couple of weeks of crewing, I was thrown in the seat. Like Corey spoke last week. He went out practice in a field a couple of days before the show, and that was his experience. You kind of learn on the fly, and that's really what I learned. I think that's the one great thing about working with 2 Extreme. I learned so much on the fly, and just been kind of going ever since. Unfortunately, everything that happened with the world, anything like that, kind of fell apart. But I'm very, very happy with how things have gone. I wouldn't say I'm done with it. Hopefully someday down the road I'll be back doing it sometime.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show for tonight. Tanner, thank you for – no, I'm kidding. Man, you really gave us the whole kitchen sink there. No, I love that. That's the perfect response to that opening question, because it's so important for so many people to realize the landscape of what you walk through. You're not a fly-in driver. You're not somebody that just saw this and just wanted to do it one day. So you grew up as a fan. Like, you were watching the events on TV. Like, who were some of your favorite drivers when you were just a young kid going to the events?
Some of my favorite drivers, Bobby Z was probably one of my favorite. Brian Barta, Little Tiger, he was actually out of Brainerd, Minnesota. Actually, sorry, Big Lake, Minnesota. So it's kind of big a root for. I always liked the Inferno truck too, or the Backdraft. I always just love the fire truck. It always got the lights going on it. It's so cool.
So, do you always want to get involved with monster trucks? I mean, it's such a far-fetched idea for a lot of people to get in the industry, but you seem to have that idea from the get-go. What was your thought process at a young age?
So when I started going to shows, I think it was 2005. I seen a commercial for the World Finals DVD, and I was like, I gotta have that. I gotta get that. So I ended up kind of convincing my mom to get it, and the next day started just watching. I just fell in love from the shows. I mean, the coolest things out there. You see the garbage trucks, school buses, and jumping. It's like I want to do that. And actually, a funny story is I actually put a screenshot of me in one of the trucks, and it said "future driver," and I put that on my phone because I always wanted to remind myself. I mean, there's been times where it's like, "Hey, kid, you might not make it." I mean, I've been told, "Hey, you'll never drive if you don't have sponsors, anything like that." But I'm like, "Watch me," you know. So it just goes to show how hard, if you want to do something, do it. You know, I didn't get thrown in a seat right away. You know, it took a few years. You know, but I think looking back on how hard it took to get to it, you appreciate it a lot more. But sometimes the story behind it means so much more, I'd have to say.
So now, did you have a mechanical background? I mean, you work on the trucks, so did you know your way around tools, or where was your experience there?
Yeah, so that was a hard thing growing up. You know, I never really had a father figure there to kind of show you how to work on trucks, stuff like that. So I kind of came in as green as day, you know, not knowing anything. A funny story Matt would probably actually talk about. I mean, I just did not know, you know, one time there was oil leaking out of the motor. I'm like, hey, there's some oil leaking from this box. Uh, you mean the oil pan? It's just I just never, you know, you're trying to learn on the fly. You know, I'd like to think I know a lot more now than I do, but it's a tough thing, you know, to have somebody to kind of show you the ropes, stuff like that, you know. So that was a good thing with Two Extreme. You learn quick.
Well, yeah, and it's such an interesting dynamic for a lot of people that maybe have not been around, you know, Jimmy Green and Two Extreme Racing. I think a majority of anybody that's been in monster trucks, and especially on the West Coast, they have. But it's a lot of tough love when you're with Two Extreme Racing, especially when you're just entering and you're trying to get your footing in the industry.
Absolutely, but you know, sometimes the tough makes you tougher. You know, we went week after week doing show after show. I mean, we've gone from Del Mar, California to um, New York, and then back. You know, but the cool thing about going every week, going show to show, is you learn. Like I said, you learn on the fly. You learn quick how to drive these trucks, because it's hard to not do it if you're doing only 10 shows a year. You know, we end up doing 60 shows a year, but I think that's where the experience comes in, let alone not just driving, but working on the trucks, being around each show. And I think each show you learn too, just the, you know, being safe. Each show has its different variables of safety, and you know, you just kind of learn more and more.
And now's a good time. Make sure you guys are watching live. Make sure you share this podcast video. Make sure you hit that like button as we continue on with Tanner Rood and really breaking down a lot of how he got into that driver's seat that he worked very hard to get into. You mentioned something in that first question that not a lot of people have experience in monster trucks, and that was being a vendor at Monster Jam. I mean, that is a completely different experience. I know I've done that for a weekend working with that department, but it's such a culture shock to see everything from a different standpoint. What were your experiences from being a vendor at a Monster Jam event?
So that's a funny story. So I did it 2 years. The first year did okay. The second year, I was wanted to just be the top. So it was in Jacksonville, and we had the station was on the bottom level, and a lot of the people, they would go back down there to get refilled their cotton candies and snow cones, and then go distribute it out, kind of closer to where that depot area is. I every time ended up going to the other side of the stadium and try to keep selling them, and it would sell out because nobody would ever make their way out there. So my goal was always just to try to be the best. I mean, even if it was just a vendor, you know, just to be able to experience the show, and let alone, you know, trying to make a little money on the side. Because one thing when I did first start out, I mean, I wasn't getting paid. It was volunteer, you know. I mean, I have to say, my mom kind of made a lot of sacrifices. I'd have to say some shows I've gone to, she would, sleep in the car or stuff like that, just so I could be a part of monster trucks. I don't mean to be so emotional, but just that's what I was talking about. That when you appreciate where you kind of come from and the sacrifices it makes to finally succeed in something you've always wanted to do. So as a kid, if you want to do something in life, don't give up. Because I will tell you, there's been times where I was told you'll never make it, you'll never do it. I'm like, watch me, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
See, that's why I love these responses and the truth on a lot of this. It's okay to be emotional because it's a lot of hard work to get, and even this position like yours, it's not a lot of people realize that, and I really appreciate the responses you've given thus far. It's the honest truth. There's a lot of sacrifice that it's given to be involved with monster trucks, and looking at your story, it's very much similar to a lot of people that work hard, but you've worn almost every hat in the business before you got to drive a truck, and that nobody could ever take away from you. I think that's an incredible experience, and I think you have such a great support system that allows you to have so many great experiences working your way up in the business.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate that, man. That's the one thing I don't want to be one of those an arrogant or somebody that just I want to appreciate everything I got. I try to be humble about everything. I'm so thankful the opportunities I've had through the years to, the way that came about. I mean, like I said, it's so cool looking back just to be, a fan in the stands. And that, I hope that story can resonate with a lot of people. If you want to do something, go ahead and do it. Just don't give up. Do whatever you can to get behind the scenes, learn, meet people. I mean, that's the way to do it.
Well, and I like how you mentioned too, where you not got behind the scenes, lend a helping hand, but you're doing that with a lot of the Monster Jam crews, and that's no easy task. And a lot of those guys who took you right under their wing, you had to have done something right. So that's a huge props where people spend their entire lives to try to get the Monster Jam in monster trucks, or that's what their goal is. And you were already there volunteering your time or working in such grassroots. So I think that's very interesting. But, go back one more. Back to when you were a vendor, I'll be honest, what's a harder job, being a vendor or working on the trucks?
I'd have to say probably working on the trucks. Vendoring, you get paid for how much you sell, so that's important. But with the trucks, the show's only about an hour and a half, 2 hours long. So if a truck breaks, you got to fix that and get that thing back out there because, trucks shouldn't be missing rounds. The fans shouldn't be missing a show. I mean, there's actually a good story. When we were in St. Louis with Matt and Jester, he had we were racing, I think he was racing Cody Saucier, and he had the rollover in the corner, saved it, came back, and then broke the wheel off. I believe Cam was with the team then. So we brought the truck back, and the cool thing at St. Louis, there's a convention center there, so all the trailers actually park inside, and it was actually, I think, snowing or cold out. So thankfully, we didn't have to bring the truck outside. So we actually thrashed on it. Monster Jam crews kind of came over, started helping us. Everybody helped us. That was in, I think, the first round of racing, and we had it. We were thrashing on. There were so many. We had a orbital go out. We had to fix the hub. Tethers were broke. I think it was even. I don't think it was a drive shaft, but there was a lot of damage. We were thrashing on it. There was actually a Swift trailer that was in the way right before Matt was going out. They were starting to kind of drop him a couple things, but we literally made it out just in time. I mean, none of us stopped. We were getting dirt out of the wheel because it was caked in there. I mean, and we're telling this Swift trailer to get out of the way so we can make it back out on the track just to make sure. But the thrash is, I mean, I think once you kind of get in the thrash, it's a kind of the adrenaline kicks in, almost kind of like driving. So you're just want to thrash and get them back out there, and compete and, put out a decent freestyle, which he did.
See, I asked that question because the one weekend I worked with the merch team, I got my butt handed to me. It was hard work, but everything has their tendencies. And I know you got to learn a lot working on those trucks, and you had a huge opportunity to join Foolery Motorsports and start working with Jester, really at the time where that team was starting to expand. How did you get a hold of Matt for that first time and maybe those first events working with Jester?
I mean, to go back on what you were just saying, even vendors, my hat's off to them. They're coming on there, setting all that stuff up. I mean, it takes a lot to sell and be a vendor. So, so hats off to them. But when I was working with Matt, I first met him. It was the Orlando show, and that's when I started helping them tire down. And then after the show, I asked him, hey, can I get your number, something like that, or can I do a couple other shows? And he's like, I'll give you my Facebook, you reach out to me and do a show. I ended up, the next following, I think it was 2 weekends away, I did the show in Tampa. Shane Hughes was the crew chief then. I just started, kind of following him, trying to help him around, help the truck, tired down after the show. I think it was a mud show. So actually, I don't know, I think we had to hose off the truck with a fire hose. But, I was just doing wherever I can, just to, if I had to scrape mud, if I had to change tires, whatever I got to do. But I'm very thankful for that team, Tom Foolery. I mean, I wouldn't be where I was if it wasn't for that team kind of taking me under their wing. I mean, I've gotten to travel and see a lot of things with that team and, had a lot of fun. Nick, Michael, Brooke. I mean, it was, I swear them kids should have had like a reality or a TV show because they were just so funny to be around. At a good time. And, Laura was great. She made a lot of great food and, they let me stay at their house, stuff like that. So I'm very grateful and thankful of them and working with them.
So what was your first year going on tour with the Jester team, with Monster Jam?
You said, what was it like?
Oh yeah. What was the first year as well?
I think the first year was the 2000, I want to say 2016. I think we went to Houston. We did like a double Houston. Can't remember the other shows. But I would say it was a wake up call just to see more behind the scenes because I've never really traveled before that. I mean, when I first started out, I went to the shows in Florida because I moved down there. Thought there was more of an opportunity and better weather. So I only did the Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa. But when I first did like the Pensacola was my first trip. Me and Shane actually drove out, or he drove out there. I think it was like a 6-hour trip. It was my first time getting out. And it was a whole different experience just to see like an arena show and just the difference of touring with a group each year or each week in, week out.
Yeah, and tour is something for a lot of people that they don't realize it's week to week, and you're going to all different disciplines, big and small. How did you adjust to being on the road and living in that rig every weekend?
That was the great thing about before. I think they used to really split up the tours with different trucks. A lot recently, they've been putting the tours together, which is I think a great thing because you kind of build a family and a community with everybody because. If somebody's down and out, even if they're going to race them the next round, they're over there thrashing. I mean, that's the really great thing about Monster Jam and monster trucks in general. I mean, everybody's a family. Everybody's just trying to make a living. Everybody's just trying to have fun and compete,
Yeah, no, it's a big competition for everyone, but it's one big family. And as I look to a lot of the events, if you're you still here, Tanner? I think Tanner's jumping back in the room here, but Tanner, are you still here? All right. Well, it looks like we may have lost Tanner. I saw him bounce a little bit in the room.
Yeah, I don't know.
Ackard wants to pop back on screen here with me. Well, we could take Tanner off the screen until he comes back. So
he's frozen. I don't know. We'll get Tanner back in here.
I'm sending Tanner a message right now. We just talked about this too. Like, what if I freeze? Like, don't panic. Well, he's coming back, folks. Tanner Root will be right back. And man, I tell you, he's told a great tale so far. And I think if you're going to take anything from this episode thus far, is those opening comments that he made. Is so proud of the hard work he's put in. I don't think people realize the amount of work that Tanner Root has put in to get to the position that he's in right now. And the experiences he had, I mean, everybody's path is different. And I think a lot of the episodes that we've had on thus far, everybody's story really dictates that, how it's so different. But Tanner's is the correct response, and I know Tanner could be a polarizing character in the industry with how he presents himself and how he shows his skills on the track. But the amount of work that Tanner put in, I would have to venture, Vincent, it outperforms a lot of people that try to get into monster trucks.
I mean, yeah, you talk about fan to driver stories. Tanner's a great example of that. I mean, he was talking about it. Talked about some of his favorite drivers growing up, and just a perfect example of fan the driver, definitely.
Let's see if Tanner will be right. Let me put up a message here, so in case anybody that's coming in is wondering why is it just the two of us talking, it's because Tanner Root will be right back. His computer is frozen there, so we'll get Tanner back in here. It's probably going to jump in on his cell phone. But if anybody has any questions for Tanner Root tonight, I see a lot of great comments in here. Just people giving Tanner a lot of praise. Very proud of him. Appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. If you guys have any burning questions for Tanner, we'll get to them at some point here tonight as we continue on with Tanner Root before he jumps back in here. And if you haven't already, make sure you do like this video and keep supporting the page here. Make sure you like the page if this is your first time joining us here on the podcast. Make sure you share this video as well. The more people that watch here, obviously, helps more people hear Tanner's story. And we haven't even scratched the surface. We haven't even talked about his first driving experiences. So there's a lot more great stories to be told here. So don't go anywhere. We're going to get Tanner back in here as he's switching on over devices right now.
I think he's back.
We see him sitting in the room waiting for his camera to appear. Yes, thank you. I am wearing an Iron Outlaw shirt. Thank you. Waiting for the magic load. Tanner, can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. That's the power of live podcasting. And don't worry, nobody left.
Well, thanks everybody for staying.
Well, we appreciate it. Don't do it again.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you realize this, Tanner. The first time we were on tour together was actually in 2017. You were with the Jester crew, and that was my first year working with Monster Jam. And I mentioned that season in particular. There's a very famous race from that year. It was Jester versus Monster Energy in St. Louis. Do you remember that race? And do you remember the thrashing that went on to get Jester back out for freestyle?
Yeah, we just mentioned that. The funny story about that is I was kind of, like I said, I was still a little green, so I actually had the headset on, and Cam was actually with us. And I contemplated on the radio because he was ahead. I think Cody spun out, and I thought about, should I tell him? Should I tell him? And I think he'll be okay. And then, unfortunately, he saved it, and then, gunned it. I think after the fact, he said he wasn't mad at me. I'm glad, because that was kind of like a green mistake. But the thrashing on that was just incredible. All the crew guys that jumped in on there, I believe John Gordon was one of them. I think John Ross, Mike Langford, they were there. Please forgive me if I forgot who else was involved. I think Ray was there. I think he was getting the dirt out of the tire. I mean, because there was dirt caked in the tire. The hub had to been replaced. So you have to take everything off that corner. The orbital blew out because once that tire hits the ground, it spikes the lines and blows out the rings in the orbital. So you have to replace all that. I mean, we literally got it out just in time for freestyle. And so it was incredible. I mean, it was a hats off to everybody in the crew to, get through that and be able to make that run.
And that's a testament to everybody just coming together and working hard. Before we kind of transition to where you go next in your career, do you have a favorite moment or story from working with Foolery Motorsports?
I think there's been so many great memories. It's kind of hard to really dot all the T's and dot all the I's. I mean, there's so many, good times I've had with them, opportunities too. I'm very thankful they gave me the first opportunity to drive a truck, to jump a truck. So I just kind of take that, and that kind of means a lot to me. But, spend a lot of time with the family. I mean, all the things we got to do. We got to go to New York. We got to go to Boston. That family kind of just took me in under their wing and kind of made me feel like part of the family. And it was, great.
So you do move on from the Jester team and you find yourself at a new team with Two Extreme Racing. What was that decision to leave a team you're with for so many years to find a new opportunity?
It's not something I truly wanted to do, but I just feel like it was for the best of me to have an opportunity to drive, and I just was wanting to make the most of it. And I figured somebody that had as many shows as Jim does, I know it was going to be a wake up call working for one of the best in the industry. A lot of people have worked for him and kind of came and gone, but I felt like I could have been someone that could rise up to the next, and I thought it'd be a challenge as well. I mean, it was my goal to always drive. When I got that phone call, I was excited. I'm like, I'm ready. Let's go. So I just tried making the most of it.
So you talk about getting a chance to drive for Jim. What was that experience like driving in your first show?
So he wasn't actually at the first show. I think he was in a different town that weekend, but we were out in the field. I believe St. John and Austin Minton were out there testing me, to hit a couple jumps, making sure everything's good. And they're like, I guess he's ready for the show. The first show was Zanesville, Ohio. I remember, I think we were with, Jack Brown, Kristen Minguez, and it was Austin and me. We did that show. I actually invited my mom to come out to that show, and it was a rain show. Right before the show, it just started downpouring, so it was a mud fest, but it was a great opportunity. I mean, I'll tell you the funniest thing is you'll hear this from a lot of drivers, but when you're out there, I mean, it was my first time driving and actually show it hitting the dirt. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going fast, stuff like that. And then you look at the video, it's like, it's kind of slow and stuff like that. But and there the adrenaline's kicking, everything like that. But it was a great opportunity, a great show.
So that was your first experience in an event. It was muddy. What the next week was a lot drier, I would imagine. What was the biggest difference your next week and maybe more so normal monster truck conditions?
So you're right. It was a lot drier and a lot harder because we were actually in a dasher board hockey arena in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. And that was kind of tricky. You had I think 5-car stacks and then a caravan car, and not very much room on the sides for the cars. So it was really transitioned into an outdoor slippery dirt track to an indoor arena. So that was the one thing that was really key about doing the triple threat, was being in them arenas. It makes you, I believe, a lot better of a driver, just having to be careful about your surroundings and very cautious. It helps make you be able to be more technique.
So did anyone give you an advice for driving the truck? If so, what was the best advice you were given for driving?
I'm sure, I don't know how he said it, but I'm sure Jim said, don't wreck it. I'd have to say when I first started out, I was kind of a hard time kind of transitioning and trying to figure it out. And I had a lot of people that would try to help me from Darren Minguez and Buddy Tompkins. I tried to kind of learn and absorb it. Or one person that really stuck to me was Jamie Gardner. We did a show in it was in Oklahoma. It's a big show, Miami, Oklahoma, Devin's hometown there. I had a terrible show. I took out at the rear end right out the gate, and I was just kind of skating through, and I was just down. I'm like, maybe this isn't for me, or But Jamie, he grabbed me. He's like, come come sit here and watch the show. Watch what these trucks are doing. Watch and learn. And other people that were there too. Cole Vennard, great people to learn from. I mean, that's the great thing about this industry. There's so many great drivers, so many great people that'll they're willing to help and teach you, and I can't think a lot of people that have helped me, make me a better driver and a better person.
And what I think is great, where you're driving with Two Extreme Racing, you have so many events where the amount of events that you would do in the summer could be the amount of events that a driver does in a year or even 2 years in some cases. So were you a quick learner behind the wheel with all those events and working with so many different drivers every weekend?
I think it took a little bit to kind of transition for me. I've never really had a complete motorsports background. The most thing I had a little ATV, kind of ran around, and but it was a learn on the fly. I mean, I was just trying to. The biggest thing is kind of getting the throttle down and getting that throttle rhythm, and you kind of the biggest thing is just getting better each show. And I feel like the time I really noticed it start getting a lot better was when I got to Del Mar, California. in about around July. I feel I was really putzing around, and then like one show, I just felt like to kind of just open it up more, and it just clicked. And then it was funny. Dawn actually came up to me, and she's like, "Something happened? What's like all of a sudden it was just like a switch clicked, and I'd say even every show, even from last year, you learn more and more each show. You just try to strive and make yourself a better driver and learn from every mistake."
So you mentioned Del Mar. Now, Del Mar has a lot of shows. So what was Del Mar like? It must have been a great learning experience for you getting all those shows under your belt.
Absolutely. I believe the 2 times we actually came to Del Mar, we were coming from somewhere out east. I think it was 1,200, 2,000 miles away. But Del Mar, I'd have to say, is probably one of my second favorite. Just the whole environment. I mean, I can't believe that fair goes on for an entire month, and you're doing 12 shows, 2 shows a day, 6 shows. It takes a lot on you. And the past year was a lot worse. Unfortunately, I think we took out 4 motors that weekend. I was actually coming with the second one. It was really rough because you're going 2 shows back to back, and then after that, we were going from Del Mar on, I believe it was a Wednesday, and had to be in San Antonio Friday for the show Saturday. And the crew we had there, I think Corey, Cam, I think Joe was there. I mean, the testament to the team and getting it ready. Me and Jim actually had to go back to the hotel and rest up so we could be ready for the pit party and do the show. I mean, that's the biggest thing is there's not much of a downtime. You're pretty much committed and married to these trucks. But the one good thing about being so close to them is you kind of know your truck and you'll be able to work on it and try to make tweaks and fix. And
Got a question here from Mike Leslie. Mike wants to know, have you ever rolled a truck at a display?
Oh, you really had to bring that up. Yeah. We were doing a display for the SA PCA in I forgot where he lives, but it was up there in Canada, I think north of Calgary, and it was a couple cars out there. Did a display, did a signing after that, and then went out there and hit a couple jumps. And the last jump I go to make, I hit a car. The trunk just kind of gave in and went sideways. Yeah, unfortunately, I rolled it at a display. But it was for a good cause. I don't remember how much we raised, but I want to say it was a couple $1,000 for the ASPCA.
And that's all that matters out there in Bonnyville, Alberta.
Yep.
Hey, since talking about Alberta, you ever been up to Grand Prairie, Alberta?
I don't think so. We were actually planning for this year. We were going to be up there for 2 months, but unfortunately that didn't work out.
Oh, phooey. Well, that's okay. I mean, you've been to so many places, especially up there in Canada, and I know one of the crazy ones is Newfoundland. Talk about that trip to Newfoundland. I don't think people realize what it takes just to get there.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if I have a couple of pictures that might be on my social media, or I don't know if you want to show them or if you have them. So we actually take a 13-hour ferry to get there, and we actually put the semis on the ship. They actually go underneath. We drive under, and they actually strap them all down, and then we actually go up in the cabins and stay. So it's like a cruise to Newfoundland, Canada. Like I said, it's about a 13-hour ferry, and it's actually so far east. There's a lighthouse that's the farthest northeast in America you can go, and there's actually a 30-minute time difference. So if you think Eastern time, if it's 9 p.m., it's 9:30 p.m. there.
Man, so those fans have to be so eager when you show up to Newfoundland. I mean, it's almost like the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's not the middle of nowhere, but just to get there, it seems like it is.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you'd be surprised. I mean, you look at a map, it looks small, but it's a large. I mean, it's a very large island, and there's actually quite a few people on there. It's actually probably one of my favorite places to go. I probably had one of my best experiences there when in 2019, was racing Jim there. Oh yeah, so that's the boat you get on. You can see the trailers going in there. They'll go in there. You could probably stick 20 trailers and probably 40 cars, I would say, in there. Motorcycles go on there, and then everybody goes up to their cabins. pretty neat experience. Yeah, you could, and it's tight in there too. And the funny thing is, you see some standing water. A little water probably gets in there. But Canada, I mean, that when I went to Newfoundland, and it was me and Jim. Corey was up there crewing with us, and that was such a great show. Me and Jim were actually tied going for the Monster Truck World Series. The final day, me and him both won a racing event, and it settled down to the last day. And he unfortunately edged me out, but it was a great experience. I think we were able to kind of prove and show Two Extreme, put us on the map there, and stayed our place for that weekend.
And it's a very competitive event too. It's one of the bigger independent monster truck events that go on. So if anybody ever has a chance to go up there, definitely check that out if you're ever in Newfoundland for whatever reason. But you're racing a lot against at the time your boss Jimmy Cregan. Do you remember the first time you beat Jimmy in racing? I know I always typically ask that, like, the first time you beat your boss is always a big deal in careers. But do you remember the first time you beat Jimmy Cregan in racing?
I don't know if I could think of the first time I beat him, but one I'd say the most memorable was the Newfoundland from this past year. It just felt so good. They kind of built up the storyline, like the boss or the employee takes down the boss. Does anybody else like to see their employee beat the boss? Stuff like that. So it's fun to have a rivalry like that. I mean, especially from a world racing champion. He's been so close for so many years. It was so great to see him finally take that home. I mean, but that's the good thing. When you race the best, you can become the best.
Vincent, do you have another question here?
Yeah, so what was it like working for Jimmy?
A lot of people came and went through Jim. Jim could be hard sometimes, but that tough personality. I mean, he's a good person. He has the best intentions. He knows a lot about the trucks, and he has learned a lot from other Christiansons. So you kind of try to be like a sponge with working with Jim and just try to learn as much as you can. Even if he's rough sometimes, you just gotta kind of take the punches and just roll with it.
And roll with it, you did, and you rolled into an incredible opportunity to go in the 2019. You got to join the Triple Threat Series, and you got to drive Monster, one of the most recognizable monster trucks of all time. Now, what was your reaction that you found out that you were going to be part of the Triple Threat Series? And talk about some of the training that you had to do to be involved with that tour.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great opportunity to be a part of the Triple Threat. When I first found out about it, I was really excited. I think they were talking about we're going to do a tour for Monster Jam, and we're going to run their bodies. And I was told, or I kind of heard through the grapevine, it was going to be a zombie or something like that. But when I found out it was Monster Mutt Rottweiler when it first came out, I was excited, because I was like, I've always liked the Monster Mutt truck, stuff like that, and it ended up being Monster Mutt, the original one. It was absolutely amazing. We went out to Paxton and went through with Tom Mentz, and I want to thank everybody out there, Feld Entertainment, inviting me and Austin to go out there and train with them for the Triple Threat, because that's where you learn to drive. Especially they put barricades out there to kind of replicate what an arena is like. So you're not actually tagging a wall if you hit the wall out there, but you really learn what your boundaries are compared to a larger stadium. That's what it said. It really makes you a better driver if you can really drive in a tight, confined spot. You're able to really open it up and know where your boundaries are.
Yeah. So now when you're out there at Monster Jam University, there's so many other people that are going through there at so many different times. I don't think people realize how busy that track can be during the summer and fall periods, especially. But when you were out there, especially at like your main training, who were some of the other athletes that were out there training with you?
We had Kristen, I can't. She was out there, and then we had I think Elvis Linus was out there. He was on our tour, so it was great being with somebody you kind of trained with and then run the roads with.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well how Elvis ended up being on the tour after all. And actually, Vincent was going to pull up another fan question here. Vincent, you got going to pull it up?
Yeah, we got one from Eric Stresky, and he says, "Hey, what truck do you like driving more, Mutt or your Cretan Identity, and why?"
To be completely honest, it's actually it's kind of a 50-50 sometimes. It's great driving the Monster Mutt bodies because they're Monster Jam's bodies compared to our bodies. But it's kind of cool running with those identities. The Iron Outlaw, I'd always liked the outlaw aspect of the Western kind of vibe with it. So it's really hard to tell, but I think Mutt's probably one of my favorites just because I was growing up as a kid and always liked Monster Mutt.
Yeah, and it's such a kid-friendly truck, and you probably didn't have any say in what trucking you run, but I think it was such a great fit being involved with the Monster Mutt. And obviously, one of the big things you always like to give back, and we'll talk about many of the variables. But you're wearing all your Adopt, Don't Shop gear. You really made that part of your own, part of your branding when you're with Monster Mutt. What do those causes mean to you? Because I know every weekend you would go out to a lot of different shelters and just lend a hand for a little bit. And I know that's a worthy cause that you stand a lot for. I'm very proud to be a part of.
Absolutely. It means a lot to me, to try to give back to each city I go to. I mean, working, we really don't have that much time. So I try to, squeeze in whatever I can to, it's really hard going into some of them shelters. You see them places packed. Dogs are just coming up to you and just they're like, take me home. So to anybody out there, if you're looking to get an animal, don't go to a shelter. And just you can go there, volunteer, work with them for a bit. You could just take a couple on a walk. I mean, it's absolutely free to go in there and just you never know, you might end up taking one home. And that's what happened to me. I have 2 dogs myself. Going into shelters because there are a lot of dogs out there. They're just looking for a good home to take home. So it means a lot to me. And then going to some of them. The children's hospitals, it's really hard to me. I was actually in a children's hospital for about a week, and when I was in there, I thought it was kind of neat because it was like we got TV and stuff like that. But I realized and they brought in the PlayStation so you could play that for a bit. But I really thought some of them kids, they don't get to leave. Some of them parents don't get to leave. They have little beds on the side that the families can lay there with their kids and just try to be a part. So it's good if we can be able, or I like to try to bring, somebody even saying hi. I mean, somebody might not even know who Tanner Root is or Monster Mutt is, but, somebody coming into the hospital and just saying, hey, how you doing? I mean, some of them kids, I went in there with one kid one time and he was like, I know who you are. And he was talking with Monster Trucks with me for 30 minutes. And the nurse was like, we got to go and stuff like that. I mean, you just never know who it might affect, because I'll have to say people that have affected me, from the littlest things to the biggest things. If I could affect one person or 100 people, hopefully it could change somebody's life for a different outlook on something. So that's why a lot of that stuff's dear and dear to me.
Definitely done a lot of great things for the community. But let's talk about your first Triple Threat event. What was that experience like competing on the Triple Threat series for the first time?
It was absolutely great. I had done a Monster Jam arena show before, but not a Triple Threat where you're getting off. And that's a lot of things that people don't know is we also have to get off and get on the ATVs and get in the speedsters. So we would go out there for racing, get out of our trucks, get on the ATVs, or actually get in our ATV gear, and then go out there, race, get out of our ATV gear, get back in the trucks, get out of the trucks after intermission, and then get in the speedsters, and then go race the speedsters, and then get out of the speedsters, get back in your truck and do the show. It takes a lot of endurance because you got to get running back to the locker room and get changed and then back. Sometimes there's been a lot of close calls, and they'll try to work with you sometimes, but you just got to be fast. You can't be putzing around. But it was a great thing. I think to stay athletic, being an athlete, just staying in fit, I think was one of the greatest things as well.
So, the Triple Threat series is such a unique breed, and one of the people that don't realize what Triple Threat series is, you're driving Monster Jam trucks, the Monster Jam Speedsters, and the Monster Jam ATVs. You're a monster truck driver, but now you're getting on an ATV and you're getting inside the Speedster. What were your thoughts driving and operating, an ATV and Speedster? And did you like one of those more than the others, and especially compared to the monster truck?
Sometimes it was hit and miss. Some weekends I feel it was better in ATV. Some weekends I felt I was better in Speedsters. But the nice thing about it is a change of pace instead of just being in the truck, doing everything. You get in a truck and say if you're having a hard time with the truck, you know, you could have an opportunity to go out there with ATVs, or if you're having a hard time with ATVs, you could go out there and try to perform in the truck and just try to, you know, kind of keep your points somewhat stable.
It's very interesting. It's not for everyone to learn and adapt. I mean, we've seen it firsthand working on the Triple Threat Series for so many years. Some athletes are just more privy to that style and some aren't. And I know, you know, some of those tours that you were a part of, such stacked lineups. I mean, I know the one tour I was there with you in 2019, you're talking got guys like Tyler Menninga and Colton Eichelberger, Barry Musow or Tony Oaks. They're who's of really current Monster Jam. And your teammate Austin Minton as well. There's so many strong athletes on that tour. What were some of the? Would any of those other athletes give you advice or any pointers, or what were the experiences working with those other athletes?
Absolutely. I mean, it was a great experience. You know, you're with 7 other great athletes from all of them top down. I mean, competing against the best makes you the best. You know, working with Jim Cretin, working with one of the best, you know, and then working with one of the best lineups. I mean, that arena tour was stacked, but, you know, it just makes you push you to be a better and harder.
And I remember your first win. It was in Denver weekend. We did timed racing there, and you had that whole competition you didn't drive El Toro Loco, but it was by the bullhorns. So you won 3 out of the 4 racing competitions that weekend. What was going through your mind there that you were just racking up wins and you're standing on top of the Monster Jam pod as the driver of Monster winning a competition?
Absolutely. I love Denver. I've had a lot of great success there. The funny story is when I did my racing time, I got out, I asked Mason, I'm like, was that a decent time? Because it felt slow, and then pulled up, and then we were sitting in the tunnel. I was already in my ATV gear, and I think Gravedigger was the last one to go, and then it says winner Monster Mine. I hear the song going, I'm like, no way, I got the first win. You know, it felt absolutely amazing. And then I think I got a couple more that weekend in timed racing, and then I think I even was able to get an ATV. But it happened each year too. Being in Denver was really awesome. So I love Denver.
We love Denver too. That weekend, I remember you also wrecked the body pretty good. And I know there was a little bit of a yard sale going on after that weekend. So well, a lot of success for you there in Denver over the years, and a lot of the tighter courses with the way your truck was set up. You know, looking at some of those triple threat venues, was there any? I know Denver was a big bright point, but maybe some of the cities you went to, were some of the cities stand out to you? You know, you had a lot more fun in one of the others.
Absolutely. Every city offers a great new experience. I'd have to say the coolest tracks to be on is probably Tacoma or Fargo, because you kind of just be able to get to open it up and, you know, kind of being like a bird in a cage in the arenas, and then be able to kind of spread your wings and kind of get on the throttle a little more. But you got to also remember the following weekend we go into like a smaller arena. So you kind of have to cage, and that also makes you a better driver going from a big track to try to transition from week to week, which we were really good at with going from a small hockey arena, going to a big track, going to a small track. So you just gotta learn where you're at. But I have to say, every great city, I mean, going to Salt Lake, Denver, we went to Winnipeg, Canada. It was cold up there, but it was a whole different experience. I mean, I can't think of a city I like more really besides, I mean, I like Denver, but I mean, every great city was awesome. Sacramento, they all kind of run Fresno, great weather there at the end of the season to kind of wrap it up.
Yeah, there's so many great cities to be involved with, and a lot warmer compared to maybe some of the other towns on the Central or East tours. But you know, being a part of the Triple Threat Series, I know a big part is to make yourself stand out. And one of the big keys I know they train over at Monster Jam University is talking on the microphone and being a dynamic personality. And you know, we got to work with a lot of different Monster Jam hosts or the announcers, in case you don't know what hosts are. What was it like for you that I don't know if you're a big public speaker, obviously you're on the podcast with us, but were you nervous every time the microphone was in your face, or something you worked with and got better with over time? What was it like constant interviews on the Triple Threat Series?
I think it's a great experience, you know, because you're doing 5, 6 shows, 4 shows a weekend, and it's repetitive, but it's a good repetitive because you kind of get a routine down and be able to address the media better. Each time I'm on the mic, I try to be better and better at each time. So it's a learning experience, which I'm very grateful for. Just better and better and better.
Yeah, and it's not just being on the microphone. There's a lot of little dynamics. It's like, any El Toro Loco driver has, holding up the bullhorns, or, the zombie arms is such a big thing. So every weekend you'd find something to do, something, sneaky or funny. I know, remember you went slaying down the pod one time. Our intro video, you were throwing, powder up in the air like you're LeBron James. But we have video of one of your more well-known skits, if we can play that right now.
I think we have 2, but we'll start with the first one.
Yeah, we'll start with the first one.
What kind of trouble am I going to get in here?
Here you are.
What's going on here?
So I was out there, truck broke early, and I still had time on the clock, so I was going to finish it. Maybe a little Talladega, Ricky Bobby. I was going to go out there and finish a run. I mean, we're in monster trucks, to go out there and perform, and it's also entertainment. I'm all about entertaining people. One of my favorite football players is Chad Ochocinco, so that's where I kind of pull a lot of my ideas from is, after he gets a touchdown or celebration, is trying to make the most of it, and the crazy thing is I could actually hear the people through my helmet, and they were just like cheering loud, and I was just like, don't fall. And there was probably about 3 times in that video I almost fell. Thankfully, I didn't do that. I did it, I think a year later, and I think I bit the dust. But, it's all in the fun of it, I mean, them kids, hey, remember that dude running around, stuff like that? I mean, they come there to have fun, and that's my job to entertain them.
Another person you pull ideas from is Stone Cold Steve Austin. So let's pull.
Oh, yeah. I look at it this way. If you're not having fun, what are you doing? I believe we were actually in Texas that weekend, so it's kind of an homage to Stone Cold Steve Austin since he's out of Texas. But I always like to try to do something extra. I don't think I have the videos, but me and Gavin was the tech official out there. Great dude. So I gave him a giant tennis ball to kind of represent a dog playing fetch. So we kind of replaced the bone and did the tennis ball. So that was kind of fun to play around. And then we also had I got a giant Frisbee to kind of represent the dog chasing the Frisbee. Unfortunately, he had a rough throw there for the first time we did it, but you just got to have fun with it.
Did you have a name for your monster mutt?
I did not have a name. If there's anybody in the chat that think would be a great name for it, go ahead.
I better not see Sparky. That's been played out. Okay. Oh man. So you're transitioning all over to a lot of the different bodies, and I know you being the regular arena events, and there was one weekend out there in Texas. Had a little bit of an injury. Took you out of the truck for just a little bit. I mean, if you want to talk, it's been so long now, so it's free to talk about. Well, what happened that weekend? What ultimately led you being outside the truck for a little bit?
I don't know if you can still see it. It's not the prettiest, but yeah, unfortunately, the ramp in the trailer came down, smashed my hand, took me out of competition. They wouldn't let me go. It was actually Trayvon Ferguson is our eight, or what do you call that? What's that called, Phil? Person in charge.
Yeah, T was the event manager or tour manager, or they change it every year. EIC,
So he's seen that happen, and KG came down, and also another crew, Michael. They came and got a car and brought me to the hospital, and he actually got yelled at for going to take me to the hospital, but I appreciate those guys taking me there. And, and T was there kind of by my side, and, and I appreciate that, it kind of goes a long way. Like I said, it's a family when that happened. It was unfortunate. It took me out for a couple of weeks, but I was excited when I came back to do my first stadium Monster Jam.
Yeah, and you took it right. That was where I was leading next. You come back and you get to do Nashville and you get to do San Antonio. Nashville was broadcast on NBCSN. I know that's always a big deal for everyone to hit TV. What was going through your mind there? You're on the big floor stadium. You get to be on TV. It's got to be a lot of dreams come true right there.
Absolutely. Nashville was absolutely incredible. I mean, Nashville's a beautiful city, and to do a giant stadium, I was a little nervous getting in there, but we were doing interviews, and Adam Anderson was next to me, and I'm like, hey, do you have any advice for a first-time stadium? And he's like, he gave me some great advice to go out there, put on a good show. I really wanted to, it's going to be hard to compete with some of the names that were on that. Colt Stevens. I mean, it's tough on a stadium. Stephen Thompson. So I was just going to go out there and kind of hold my own. And I was with Alex Barden too. He put up a great job. He was my teammate that weekend, and we were trying to show him Too Extreme was here to put on their. It was actually 3 drivers that weekend. I think the tour manager was a little nervous. They were actually having some extra training for us to make sure nothing happened, stuff like that. Nothing did. They just want to make sure a good show, and I think we provided that to them.
We're going to move on to our next segment of the show. It's time for Explain That Photo. Rules are simple. Explain that photo. We'll start off with the first one.
So that was when I was a kid there with Bobby Z. It was probably one of my favorite Monster Mutt drivers. I'd have to say that. I want to say that's probably 2004, but I looked up to him and ended up driving Monster Mutt, so it kind of means a lot. There's Dennis Anderson, me as a kid. I think that was after a show autograph sessions when they used to do that. It was a great opportunity to meet one of the legends. Unfortunately, I never got to race with him, and I got to race with his sons, but such a legend to kind of pave the sport for a lot of drivers. Okay, so this is a really funny story. So on the left is Cam Mingus, and on the right is Matt Pegnarulo. So we were actually at a display in, I think, Wentzville, Missouri, which we were for the show in St. Louis, Missouri, the weekend where we had the big thrash. So we were at a display of Chick-fil-A, and I actually used to work at Chick-fil-A before I started with Monster Trucks. So I actually went into where the marketing manager was, and I was like, hey, do you mind if I be the Chick-fil-A cow? And they ended up putting me in it. Cam knew what I was up to, but Matt didn't. So we were messing around with Matt. Like I'd take the hit, I just accidentally hit him, stuff like that. It was questioning after I got out of it. He's like, where have you been the whole time? Oh, nowhere. So yeah, that's actually all 3 of us are in that photo. I'm just happen to be in the cow costume.
Boo.
So this was pretty awesome opportunity. Rest in peace to the announcer. This was at Everbank. This was my first time crewing, or this is my first season with Matt. And Matt did an incredible freestyle in my hometown of Jacksonville. And we were on the big screen talking about it. And it meant a lot to me. I mean, I had people Snapchatting me and messaging me, hey, it's you, stuff like that. I mean, so it's really cool to see people, realize where I'm at. I mean, I have to say that's still one of my lifelong goals is to do that Jacksonville show and put on a great show for that state, put on for my city, So this is actually the last show that I've done so far. Very thankful for the opportunity. Jim and the Too Extreme Racing team, they gave me the opportunity. Dawn Cretan let me borrow the keys to her Scarlet Bandit. I made sure I kept it in good shape for a show in Green Cove Springs, Florida, where where I lived. Funny story, the back behind there, I actually used to work in a haunted house back there and was scaring people, and also did live music shuttling for bands like John Party and stuff in that very arena. So it's kind of neat to put on a show. And my mom came out, a lot of close friends came out. My boss even came out and seeing how I was doing. So it meant a lot to put on a show. Hopefully I'll be back sometime. This is to anybody out there, you know, that's going through a hard time, anything, you know, if you're ever down, do not let a temporary emotion be a long-term effect. You know, the world is better with you in it. If you have any, call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. This is an incredible moment. So I didn't expect to win this. I think Scott Olinsky and a couple people, they were reaching out to me. They're like, "Hey, are you going to be here? Are you going to be here?" Unfortunately, this was the time frame I was out with my hand injury, but I was convinced to come on down. It was only a 2-hour drive down to Florida. My mom was there, and it kind of sucked. I really got drawn up on the spot. I didn't expect it. I wasn't like preparing to say anything. There was some stuff I wish I would have really said more of, and you know, the biggest thing is the platform I had there. I just wanted to try to use it for good, and you know, the hope, adopt, don't shop. But this outreach award is neat, but it goes a lot farther than that. I mean, I'll tell you, driving is a lot of fun, but what means the most to me is to see the face. I mean, that I can't even hear the dogs talk to me, or even just seeing the kid's face of just smiling. It kind of trumps driving sometimes. I mean, you know, to me, I kind of get emotional with that, because I can't imagine what some people are going through. And, you know, I'm very thankful for the opportunities that I get. You know, I just wish some people had other opportunities, but I try to make the most of it for them. So this was for everybody, all the shelters I visited, for every children's hospital I visited. This is for them. So this is Newfoundland, Canada. This picture kind of, you can't really see, but this is a pretty wide track. It's actually a speedway. NASCAR actually used to race out on this track. But this, I forgot to get on the brakes quicker. This kind of messed up the body for the rest of the weekend, but this did win freestyle. So it was kind of a moot point. So, but that's why I say Newfoundland this past year was absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, that knucklehead body was kind of reaching its expiration.
Got one more picture for you.
That's my mom. She means a lot to me, you know. Like I said, I don't mean to get emotional, but if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here, let alone alive, you know. But the sacrifices she made, you know, she literally stayed in the car and just went to bed or just laid there just so I can go help a team. I wasn't getting paid, you know. I wouldn't be driving if it wasn't for her. So I'm very thankful, you know, I've had her. So. Yeah.
Well, most definitely your biggest fan, and I know that, you know, you've mentioned it so much here, how much she supported you, and that's important, and it's a lot of sacrifice. You know, we've hit it a lot too, where you're on the road, and you know, you're away from family at sometimes, and then, you know, getting to that moment, there's so many sacrifices that you have to make a lot of times as a family to pursue opportunities and dreams. And again, the fact that you're even on this podcast and even telling these stories is proof that it was all worth it, Tanner. I mean, that's, you know, always hold your head high on that, and know that nobody can ever take away the things that you've done. So there's my sap to that as well.
I appreciate that, you know. Just remember, you only get one family, you only get one mom, you only get one dad, you know. She happened to be my dad and my mom, you know, so I can't thank her for everything. And make sure you tell anybody that your family, anything, that you love them.
Yeah, it's some people take for granted, and you know, in monster trucks, I know it's because of things like that where we all come together, and this entire industry is one big family. And I like to say that we all play in the same sandbox. We might play in different corners of the box with different toys, but we're all playing with the same sand. So we're all in this together. Everybody's got something going on. This is got to be dysfunctional to be involved with monster trucks, and I think that's what makes us all unique. And Tanner, you're just proof of that, man. I don't know how to transition to where I'm going next, but just always know that we appreciate the hard work that you always put in.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on, even though I haven't been driving lately, stuff like that, just kind of tell my story, I don't mean to get emotional about all this stuff, but one thing I'll tell you, I have a lot of is heart.
Yeah. And it's a lot with it too. And, we're not done yet here with Tanner. We'll have some more questions. If anybody has any comments or questions you want us to ask Tanner here tonight, please leave in the comments here. I know I saw a question from our buddy Mike Menner early on from the Warhead Mini Monster. He asked any good Jimmy stories. I mean, gosh, there's so many so many moments with Jimmy Creed. I know, good and bad, but I mean, you got to give me one of your best ones.
Oh boy.
See, I don't know what I can or can't say, but can we maybe come back to that one, because I have to think of one that would be good.
Yes, that's quite all right. We can go. We can always circle back. I know you have a lot of hobbies of yours, and to kind of sidebar from a little bit of monster trucks. My buddy Brian Anger always has a question, but actually tonight he's tuning in live, and he put his comment in here. Says you went to a lot of haunted attractions all over the country last year. Which was your favorite, and why didn't you go to mine, which is the Morrow Road Haunted Trail in St. Clair, Michigan? Well, Anger, I don't know why he didn't go to yours. Maybe Tanner can tell us why, or maybe what was your favorite haunted house? That's the more proper question.
The closest one I went to was in Pontiac, Michigan. I ended up going to, I think it was 57 haunted houses. There was a lot to choose from. Probably one of my favorite ones. If anybody likes haunted house or anything like that, you have to make a trip to Pennsylvania. There's two great ones. One's called Field of Screams, and then there's another in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and then there's a really good one. It's called Penhurst Asylum. It's an actually old asylum that they turned into a haunted house. But I got the opportunity to see a lot of haunted houses, thankful with my boss, stuff like that. I mean, kind of working on some bigger things, so kind of stay tuned to see what's up. But there's a reason for all those, so you guys will see.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that too. I know that's always a big passion of yours, and I know another passion of yours is the Cincinnati Bengals, and another Bengal fan's in the comment, Mike Nugent, and he says, there he is. He says, we planning on going to the Cincinnati Bengals Super Bowl parade next year, 2021. Hashtag Houday.
Houday, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we got our guy, I don't know how many people follow football, stuff like that, but Joe Burrow, I mean, that cat can play, he's something special. So really excited for the Cincinnati fan base. I've been a fan for so long. It's been so heartbreaking over the years. Anybody that follows it, especially 2015, anybody, the Pittsburgh Steelers, that playoff game. But, I feel like the tides are turning, something like that. So, to be honest, I'm very thankful. A lot of stuff did come back. Monster trucks came back, sports came back. I mean, it's really hard for a lot of people. And that's kind of where I'd have to say that mental health and suicide, with people not having a lot to kind of take off their mind, it's really hard to kind of focus. So thankfully sports coming back for a lot of us, kind of gave us something to look forward to.
And he got that there. I know, time we're recording this, we are in the middle of the pandemic. So there's so much going on. And I know that a lot of the time that you've spent during the pandemic is actually going to a lot of like tourist attractions and crazy things like the world's biggest this and the world's smallest this. What's got to be the coolest thing that you've seen on the road over the last year or so where there's not too much going on, but you've made the most of it?
Yeah, that's what I'm very thankful. I get to travel with a lot what I do. I do it safely. I mean, I'm not saying anything, taking anything against that. I mean, there's many places I've been to not, knock on wood, to get anything. You just really have to be safe about when you go out in places and just respect people. If you believe in, we're not going to get politically here. If you believe in wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, just respect other people. That's all you really ask for. And a lot of the places I go to are actually a lot easier to go to during the pandemic because not as many people are out. But I'd have to say some of the coolest things I've seen is the Grand Canyon. But mean, even just seeing the newest thing is cool to me. I'm actually really excited. I'd love to really travel abroad. One place I'm really looking forward to hopefully go to down the road is, Dubai or Germany. They actually have it's pretty cool. When I was a kid, I worked at a hobby store, and I've always loved like the trains and stuff like that. And they have it's the world's largest train model rail set, and they actually have an working airport. If you look it up, anybody, it's called Miniature Wonderland. It's absolutely incredible, like the detail. There's so much little stuff to that, but just seeing new things. To anybody out there that even if it's out your front door, if it's in your yard, I mean, there's a website I use. I think it's called Roadside America. That's actually where I find a lot of my stuff. Or I just look up what's around in a certain city. If you want to see something, you never know what might be in your back door. So just adventure a little, like you only get one, I want to be cliche. You only get one life, just make the most of it. Enjoy every moment,
I just love all these fortune cookie-isms that you're giving us tonight, Tanner. See another couple comments here that came in. I got a big one here from Zachary Newton. I'll read it out loud here. It says, "Not sure how much you remember me, Tanner, but I was the guy who made all those customs for Matt back in the day. Hope you get a ride soon, man. Been doing a lot of volunteering myself since last summer, and I've since worked with a lot of people who are or were with Tom Foolery Motorsports and would love to one day finally be able to do a show with you. Also, FYI, I got that eyebrow you gave me back in Louisville 2019 on display a few weeks back."
That's awesome. I'm glad you got that piece. Yeah, I actually do remember you. I remember you came to one of our displays and I think it was a Monster Energy truck. It was so detailed. Like, no offense to Hot Wheels or any of that, but it was just so like, I was just like, if I was like a kid, I'd want something that detailed. I mean, he makes some incredible things that I don't know if he has a page or anything, but those pictures of them trucks, but you got to go check him out. I mean, he has some pretty incredible. I think he's done a lot more recent trucks too, and I'm blown away. Like, I wouldn't know where to start when making those little fine things of them trucks. I mean, I don't even think a video game could touch it.
Yeah, Zachary's a member on the Monster Truck Collecting Facebook group, so definitely check him out in there. And I just saw. He said Louisville 2019. That's pretty funny. I was at that event. That was the weekend I was working with the merchandise team. So
see, this is the video I sent you last night. You were selling some merchandise.
Yes, I was selling pictures.
Phil was selling it away. I'll tell you, he was going.
Well, I think it's important for a lot of people. Yeah.
Phil, the way you sold that was great. You were telling him like, this picture will look great on your wall. That's exactly what you said, and that was awesome selling. So hats off to you. That was great.
Hey, everybody's got to hustle at some point. Everybody's got to do something once. So,
hey Phil, you want to be a vendor and sell some cotton candy and snow cones for $1 a piece for $15?
I did it. Well, I managed those folks for a weekend, so
did you?
A lot of hard work, but it's all worth it. But that's not about me. It's about Tanner Root. So I know we got another fan question. Vincent, you want to pull it up?
Yeah, we're going from Mike Arnold, and Mike says, "I would like to say thanks from Denver for allowing my brother and myself to help out behind the scenes and getting to experience what it's like being on a crew."
Yeah, absolutely. I remember them guys. Those guys are great. I mean, even the littlest things, you don't mean to kind of give them these kind of like repetitive tasks. Hey, can you go get the fuel, stuff like that? But it takes a lot of burden off us, getting prepped for the show. And that's one of the trickiest things, me and Austin probably face is getting the trucks ready, let alone getting the truck there, getting it out. Because we're pretty much married to them trucks and we're always working on them. So having extra guys like that, and that's how I got started. Somebody letting me help them. If I could let somebody help me, that might get behind the wheel someday, it'd be absolutely amazing to say, I remember when you let me help you, and thank you because, I'm always in debt and very grateful for everybody that is in my past that, to where I am today.
Yeah, and it's a lot of experiences on the road. And, looking at 2020, you had another full first quarter there. For the most part, there was a couple events you couldn't quite get in, driving Monster Month, the Triple Threat Series. But, outside of one event there where you got to drive Scarlet Bandit, that was the end of your tenure with Two Extreme Racing. How come you've stepped away or you're no longer with Camp Cretan?
Like I said earlier, I'm actually currently working on another project right now, away from monster trucks that I'm kind of excited for, something I've kind of always been passionate about. So, you guys will just kind of have to stay tuned for the next chapter. I'll tell you, I'm not going to stop. And anybody else out there, don't stop. If you want to do something, if you want to become somebody, whatever you want to do it. Don't give up. Don't let nobody tell you. People said I couldn't do something, so I kind of decided to prove them wrong. So if I could prove them wrong, you can too. And I don't mean to sound like a fortune cookie, but I like to try to use kind of like what my platform is. I'm not the biggest celebrity, biggest driver, anything like that. But if I could show somebody a kid that had no experience in like getting started, you could do it too.
Man, I love your attitude. Great response. Got another fan question here from Mike Nugent. He says, if you could own your own monster truck team and have your own identity, what would your truck or truck name or concept be and why?
There's probably only one person that might know that name, and it's actually sitting on my wall right now. I can't release what that name is, but you guys will just have to stay tuned. But I'm very, very excited for this opportunity and what I kind of have up my sleeve. So just stay tuned, everybody.
Oh, man, we can't wait to see it. Hey, I gave you a little bit of time. What's your favorite Jimmy Cretan story?
Boy, I don't know if this one was supposed to get out, but to me, this is really funny. So in the shop, there's a bathroom that you can lock the doors on the outside. We have like these giant buckets of bolts. So I thought it would be funny one time to lock Jimmy in the bathroom. I don't know if you ever seen the meme of the big bird that kicks down the door, but that's exactly what happened. He literally kicked the door down, broke it. Thankfully, Austin and Tyler fixed the door. But that was a good story. It was kind of, I guess, a short story, but anything I could kind of think off the top of my head, that's good.
Well, I'm going to take your word for it. So, never been to Tonganoxie, so I don't have that visual, but I have the good gist of what you're talking about. But there's a good crew down there in Tonganoxie, and I know you spent a lot of time on the road with Austin Mitten. Austin's been around these trucks a lot too. Do you have any good tales with Austin Mitten from over the years?
I'm absolutely thankful that I got to work with him. He actually was there a lot longer than I have, so he's been around and knows a lot more. And I try to kind of be a sponge and absorb and kind of listen to what he says. Because he's been around these trucks, so we practically live together. It's hard sometimes when you're practically with somebody to kind of just get space, to kind of do your own thing. But when it came to the trucks, we were important in making sure that they made their rounds. That was our job. If they're not making their rounds, we're not making money. So I think we both had the same goal. I think we did a good job and got through. Tough breaks. I've rolled, he's rolled. It happens. We're human.
These humans, we all stick together, and we're around each other so much. And I know from like the Triple Threat series, it's like we do almost everything together. You can't blink or finish people's sentences without somebody doing it for you. And there'll be a lot of like social dinners every night going somewhere. And it's an interesting culture. I don't think a lot of people realize a lot that goes into being on a tour and being on the road. And what were some of your approaches and in situations like that, and maybe this more social atmosphere that comes with being on monster trucks?
I don't know. I was kind of just the quiet one. I kind of like to stuck to myself. I'm not a big partier or going out or anything like that. So I kind of just stuck to my P's and Q's. Sometimes I'd go back to the hotel and go to bed, or I'll maybe like play the little monster truck game on my computer, something like that, or just try to kind of catch up on rest or try to plan something. I have to say one of the hardest things that I've had to try to do is try to plan on like doing a visit, especially like at a hospital. Because I'm actually the one that tries to reach out to them and try to do something for them. I don't really have a coordinator or anything like that. So trying to work with them because there's a lot of protocols you have to go through. Shelters, not as much, especially unfortunately, like nowadays, it'd be really difficult to go anywhere as much as I would like to try to give back, even if it's just a city I'm in or something like that, just to give back. But, just kind of pretty much stick to myself.
Yeah, I mentioned that because it's not trying to make it sound like a loner or anything, because we're all in this together and we're all very active with each other. It's just a lot of different dynamics that go into tour. A lot of people don't realize. I look at it from a Monster Jam perspective. These could be 10 to 12 weeks, and from your perspective, it's almost every week until like Christmas. So there's a lot of there's not too many chances where you can just break away. It's almost nonstop. Drive this, socialize here, and then it's like you forget you have to brush your teeth sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, no matter what, even if you are with family, sometimes you have to get away. Sometimes you need your space, no matter who you are. So that's why I just kind of try to get away. Especially the toughest thing is you're pretty much at the track. We got to be there at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. Get the trucks ready, get parked for pit party, and then you're there till if it's a 7 o'clock show, maybe 9, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Getting out of there loaded. So sleep is very little, and you try to capture it whenever you can.
I gotta ask, what's your favorite moment from your monster truck career thus far?
I'd have to say, I mean, there's a couple of them. So the Newfoundland, like racing Jim in Newfoundland, really meant a lot to me because he's an absolutely great racer. I mean, you've seen how many times he's came close to the world finals, and he's been around and done it. And that's about being a sponge to him. He's probably hit every jump, every different way. He could tell you, hey, I would hit it this way, hit it that way. So taking him on and, capturing a win over him and on a big track like that meant a lot to me. And then all the Denver wins and stuff like that meant a lot. I really remember, but winning the Outreach Award too really meant a lot to me, so it's kind of hard to really take one thing, but I'm pretty much thankful for everything. I know it's such a vague answer, but I truly am. I really try to be humble about everything I have captured, and I'm thankful for every opportunity, good, bad, ugly. I'm thankful for every moment of it because.
Very interested to hear your response for this question. I always ask it, being that you're a fan to driver story, what advice do you have for someone looking to get their foot in the door in the monster truck industry?
Do what I did. I mean, I just started going to show. I mean, you don't have to go straight to a Monster Jam show and help people out. I was just sometimes it's being in the right place at the right time. You go to independent show. I mean, I always get asked this question: hey, how do I get in monster trucks? Just go to a show, start helping people out. I mean, you're not going to get your foot in the door driving right out the gate. You just aren't. It's just help out wherever you can. I mean, if you're scraping tires off, somebody's going to see you. I mean, I remember I even offered JR one time. I'm like, hey, I'll just scrape the mud off your tire or whatever you can. And he's like, I got enough guys right now and stuff like that. But I'm like, I was so desperate at the time because I'm just like, where can I help? After Jacksonville, the night after doing the vendor stuff, I showed up the next day. They were all out there working the parking lot. I just started coming up, and I think Mike Vaughters had me wash his tires. I didn't care. I was like, I'm washing a monster truck tire. This is cool, So to anybody that is doing it, just be humble and thankful for every opportunity you get because you never know where it might lead you. Always just remember to capture all the moments you do take. I have a lot of pictures from my story, so it's cool to look back. Always cherish the story.
And there's so many stories and so many memories you've made, and I always make this our last question here for the evening. And Tanner, you're very well spoken. You speak like a true veteran. We've had a lot of guys on here that have 30+ year careers, and or maybe not as well spoken as you are, and how you've approached monster trucks in general. And you've accomplished so much from literally nothing to something. You've worn every hat in the business, which a lot of people can't say. But when it is all said and done in your monster truck career, and that's not anytime soon. We both know that. But when it is all said and done, what do you want your legacy to be?
I just want people to realize that they could be like me. They could be from, coming from nothing. I mean, I just want to kind of try to be a role model to the people, and if you want to do something, I mean, I don't mean to go back to these cliches. If you want to do something, dream something, make what you can, make a story of it.
That's what I like to hear, Tanner. I'm so proud of you. I love these responses. It's something a lot of people need to hear, especially get involved with monster trucks. And I miss our late night evenings, just rambling about nonsense in monster trucks and just doing whatever. I know those probably have some of those nights one day down the line, but we've accomplished a lot here. Once you say so, Vincent, it's been great to hear Tanner share a lot of his story and just know that he's not slowing down.
Definitely not slowing down, and it's great hearing from you, Tanner.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, Phil and Vincent. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, Tanner. We'll definitely catch up with you soon, and we appreciate you coming on here tonight and sharing your story.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Have a great night, and thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thank you, Tanner. So, Tanner, again, somebody I've, personally have been on the road with and, I've seen a lot of the stuff firsthand. And I don't mean to call out his answers fortune cookie because that's exactly the person Tanner Root is. He's very well polished. He knows what his goals are. And I think a lot of people did not realize, and hopefully they realize tonight listening to this or whenever they're listening to this, how much work Tanner has put in. And he's done everything right. We've had guests on where we say, oh, they've done everything right. Tanner is a perfect example of that. He's done everything right. He got the opportunities. Say what you want about Tanner, but he accomplished the goals. He might be doing something that you've never done, and he did it right.
Well said, Phil. I mean, you talk about him being a fan of driver's story. Like I said before, Tanner's a perfect example of that. You said he did everything right in the industry. You're right on that, too. I mean, well said.
That's all we can say here. But hey, we're not slowing down. We always say that every week. But man,
We're never
we
slowing down.
have a lot of fun doing this. We try to have fun here. We try to bring on different guests, different stories. And if you look at our library of past guests, it's 100% true to that. If you like what you heard here tonight and you want to catch some of our past episodes, make sure you go to our Facebook page, go to that video tab, live podcast episodes. You'll see our entire library of past guests. A lot of people that have worked alongside Tanner or have driven for 2 Extreme Racing over years. I know we had Preston Perez on earlier, who's another Triple Threat Series athlete. So catch up on some of those past episodes there, or you can catch them all audio only wherever you can find podcasts. That is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Deezer, Stitcher. There's new websites coming all the time. What I'm trying to tell you is wherever you can find podcasts, you can find our podcast. We have the widest distribution on any monster truck podcast out there, and we are quickly approaching 100,000 downloads on this podcast. That's an incredible number. There are a lot of podcasts in podcast land. That's a big number, okay? And we want everyone to support all of our other past guests, and that's a lot easier said than done on some of these. So make sure you keep on supporting what we're doing here. Follow us on Facebook and on Instagram, and always stay tuned to what we got going on here. We always like to put up teasers on who's coming on next, so make sure you stay tuned to that at the beginning of the week. And, yeah.
The train must.
Yeah. I've ran out of words. But what do you say, Vincent? We'll wrap this one up.
Come on.
Come on, what?
You're never out of words. What are you talking about?
Got to take this horse down the old town road and got to polish my teeth and buckle them up. And and that's the way it was. Or hey, how did Walter Cronkite end his stuff? What do you always say? That's the way it was? No one's answering me. All right, well, we're gonna end this.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.